Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of Police Commissioner Tisch and the Police Foundation, I'd like to welcome everyone back to Cipriani's for the 2026 State of the NYPD. To begin, I ask everybody please rise for the presentation of our nation's colors and the singing of the national anthem by NYPD Detective Makia Brown.
Detail, hold.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave for the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Thank you, Detective Brown. Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated.
1, 2.
At this time, it's my pleasure to introduce the Chairman of the Board of Trustees for the New York City Police Foundation, Dr. Philip Ozawa.
Morning, Mayor Mamdani, Your Eminence, Your Grace, Madam Attorney General, Madam Speaker, members of the leadership of New York State government, members of the leadership New York City government, the leadership of the NYPD, distinguished guests, good morning. For over 50 years, the New York City Police Foundation has played a vital role in supporting the NYPD and enhancing public safety. Gone Stop, Crime Stoppers, Domestic and International Liaison Combating Global Terrorism, after-school tutoring, after-school sports programs, interactive virtual reality training for youth, wellness programs for officers, emotional canines for officers, leadership development, Commanders College, NYPD Women's Conference, NYPD's Summer Youth Employment Program. These are just a few of the programs we sponsor. We're honored to be joined this morning by members of the board of the Police Foundation. We thank you for what you do. Thank you. Yet none of that will be possible without the dedicated staff of the Police Foundation led by our President and CEO, Ms. Susan Birnbaum. Thank you. The NYC Police Foundation is honored to partner with Police Commissioner Jessica Tisch. Last year at this gathering, we talked about her vision and our hopes and our aspiration. This year, we get to talk about her leadership and her results and her impact. Historic reductions in all major crimes. Leadership matters. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome an extraordinary leader, the Police Commissioner of the City of New York, the Honorable Jessica Tisch.
Thank you all. Thank you. Please sit. Please sit. I have a lot to say this morning. Okay, good morning, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Ozawa, for that introduction and for your leadership of the New York City Police Foundation. Thank you as well to President and CEO Susan Birnbaum and the Foundation's board, trustees, staff, and supporters. I am grateful to be joined this morning by so many elected officials, including Mayor Mamdani, partners in labor, and city leaders. Among them, Attorney General Letitia James, Madam Attorney General, you have worked closely with this department on some of the most consequential public safety issues facing our city. Thank you so much for being here. We are also joined by our crime-fighting partners, District Attorneys Katz, Clark, and Bragg, as well as our borough presidents, Gibson, Hoylman, Siegel, and Richards. Thank you all for playing a critical role in keeping New Yorkers safe. Speaker Menon, you have been in your current role for only a short time, but your focus on public safety issues long predates it. We look forward to continuing to work closely with you. Welcome, of course, to MTA Chair Jano Lieber and our newly minted Port Authority Executive Director and my good friend, Catherine Garcia. Congratulations, Catherine. The NYPD is very proud of how we have driven down crime in the system that keeps this city moving. Finally, I want to thank some of our esteemed faith leaders here today, especially Cardinal Dolan and Reverend A.R. Bernard. And I want to welcome Archbishop Ronald Hicks to our great city. Archbishop, I am going to answer a few questions I imagine are on your mind, but you are probably too much of a gentleman to ask. Yes, us New Yorkers are as strange as we seem, and no, we are not all conscious of it. Although Governor Hochul could not join us this morning, her partnership in strengthening public safety across this state has been consistent and unwavering. We are so grateful for her continued support of this department. A year ago, I stood on this stage and I set clear expectations for the NYPD. I said that New Yorkers deserved a police department that was stable in its leadership, disciplined in its operations, serious about its standards, and focused relentlessly on public safety. I made promises to our cops and to all the people we serve, and 2025 was about keeping those promises and exceeding those expectations. When we got to work, the NYPD looked very different than it does today. A crisis of leadership, a department plagued by scandal, a public confidence deeply shaken. That was the reality that we inherited. Rebuilding meant stabilizing the chain of command and reestablishing expectations for how leadership functions at every level. It meant making difficult personnel decisions, confronting practices that had gone unexamined for too long, and restoring discipline around how this department operates day to day. And that is exactly what we did. Together, we have cleared away the rubble of crisis, and we say with renewed certainty that the state of the NYPD is strong. In 2026, that doesn't change. Our crime-fighting posture remains the same. The standards that we hold ourselves to remain the same, and the commitment to support the noble men and women of the NYPD remains absolute. Because in this department, better has never been good enough. The work is never finished. In my 18 years of public service, I have learned that meaningful progress rarely comes from comfort or easy consensus. It comes from being willing to test assumptions, to listen seriously, and to use facts and data to drive decisions and to deliver results. That's the approach I've always brought to my work, and I am grateful to have found a partner in Mayor Mamdani who shares that set of beliefs. We don't agree on everything, and we don't pretend to. What matters is that we share a seriousness about progress and a willingness to do what's required to achieve it. I know that there are people who are skeptical about whether this partnership could actually work. My message to them is this: it is working, and New Yorkers will be safer for it. Last year, New York City had the fewest shooting incidents and shooting victims on record. We had the safest year on the subway outside the pandemic era since 2009, and we saw major crime declines in all 5 boroughs. The strategy behind these results is simple. Don't just get tough on crime, get smart. We used a data-driven scalpel approach to go after the guns and take down the gangs. At the center of that approach is the precision crime fighting plan that I discussed at this breakfast last year, our violence reduction zones, which puts our cops exactly where they are needed most. And our cops have executed the plan brilliantly. That precision made a real difference, and I am pleased to report that we started 2026 even stronger than 2025 with what I like to call the trifecta, the lowest number of shooting incidents, shooting victims, and murders ever recorded in the month of January. Major crime was also down nearly 7%. As we continue to execute our zone strategy, we are seeing that each borough, and often each neighborhood, has its own specific crime problems. And those problems aren't always best solved by any one unit working in silo. They require a response tailored to the problem and the place, not a one-size-fits-all solution. So this year, we are taking that same scalpel mindset and applying it in a new way. We call it the precision task force approach. That means patrol officers, detectives, intel and crime analysts, and specialized units sitting in the same room, working the same problem with the same information. We recently piloted this strategy in Queens North, a patrol borough long plagued by an entrenched problem of residential burglaries affecting neighborhoods across multiple commands. We set up a multidisciplinary precision task force to go after the root of the problem, bringing together intelligence, investigations, and operations. As a result of the precision task force approach, residential burglaries in Queens North dropped 63% last month. This approach gives us the ability to be nimble in a way traditional deployments do not allow. If the pattern shifts, we shift with it. If the problem changes, so does our response. Because of the success that we saw in Queens North, we are now scaling this precision strategy to address problem areas across the city like retail theft in Manhattan shopping corridors, auto theft in the Bronx, and commercial robberies in Brooklyn, to name just a few. But precision can't stop at deployment. It also requires us to examine whether the department's structure still fits the city that we are serving. And nowhere is that mismatch clearer than in the Bronx. For too long, the Bronx has experienced more crime per capita than any other borough while operating under a structure that has not kept pace with the demands placed on it. The Bronx is organized under a single patrol borough command, one leadership structure overseeing every precinct, while Manhattan, Brooklyn, and Queens have long since moved to 2 patrol borough commands to handle the volume of work there. Bronx residents have raised this issue for years. They're not asking for special treatment. They are asking a reasonable question about fairness and capacity. Why does a borough this large still operate under a structure that wouldn't be acceptable elsewhere in the city? And they are right to expect better. Just look at the numbers. Last year, the Bronx accounted for more than 1/3 of all shooting incidents and shooting victims citywide, roughly 3 times Queens and Manhattan. The borough recorded more major crime than Manhattan and Queens and nearly as much as Brooklyn. And Bronx residents generated nearly 1 million calls for service last year, more than Queens and nearly equal to Manhattan. That's why, starting this spring, the Bronx will be split into 2 patrol borough commands, Bronx North and Bronx South, mirroring the same 2 patrol borough structure as Manhattan, Brooklyn, and Queens. This will bring nearly 200 additional cops to the Bronx, strengthening our ability to respond to the different needs across neighborhoods and giving officers a structure that better matches their responsibilities. It will also add additional specialized units into the borough, including homicide squad detectives, evidence collection teams, narcotics teams, neighborhood safety teams, and auto crime units. Leadership will be closer to the communities they serve, and the command structure will finally match the Bronx as it exists today. We will continue working closely with the Borough President, Vanessa Gibson, and District Attorney, Darcel Clark, as this transition takes shape. Thank you, Madam Borough President and Madam District Attorney, for your partnership. But organization alone doesn't do the work. It has to be matched by investment in the people who carry it out, because the work of policing evolves with the world that it serves. Over time, the complexity of the job changes, the threats change, the law changes, the expectations of the public change. And if we expect our officers to meet those realities, then we have an obligation to meet that responsibility with preparation. We ask a great deal of our cops, most of whom serve for 20 or more years. But after the police academy, the only things officers are consistently required to be retrained on are firearms qualification and CPR. We have heard that concern directly from officers. They want training that reflects the situations they're actually encountering on the streets. They want to know what they're allowed to do under the laws as they change. They want time in training that is immersive and demanding, and they want that consistently throughout their careers. And New Yorkers? They want confidence that when officers are called into volatile moments, those officers are prepared to protect life and exercise informed judgment under pressure. That is why, in 2026, we are launching the most significant overhaul of in-service training that this department has undertaken in decades. For the first time, officers will start to participate in a recurring, focused, week-long in-service training program that they will attend consistently throughout their careers. This won't be a procedural check the box. It will ensure that officers are periodically retrained on things like tactics, de-escalation, constitutional policing, legal standards, and situational awareness. We are doing this because we ask officers to make hard decisions in moments that unfold quickly and that carry real consequence. When those moments arrive, preparation matters, and so do the tools that they carry. We have spent the last year examining our use of force alternatives, and we have found one glaring thing. Our officers try to use alternatives to lethal force, but too often the tools that they have been given have failed them. Tasers, were introduced to give officers another option in high-risk encounters, to slow situations down, to create space, and to reduce the likelihood that an encounter ends in deadly force. But in too many of those moments, the technology wasn't effective enough to make a difference. That is why we are improving our use of force alternatives by introducing the TASER 10. This upgraded model allows officers to operate from greater distance, with more precision, and with more opportunity to resolve situations before they turn lethal. Throughout my time in government, I have always been known as a modernizer. From my early days in the NYPD to do it to sanitation, you show me a government problem and I will attack it with a forward-thinking solution, not because technology fixes everything, but because when systems are outdated, people end up compensating with workarounds and delays and guesswork, and that is where accountability and efficiency break down. One place that's been overlooked for far too long has been our 311 system. Requests coming in through 311 were often assigned at the NYPD through long text chains and phone calls. Supervisors tracked jobs by hand, and officers didn't always have a clear picture of what was assigned, what was still open, or who was responsible for follow-up. And then we sit around and wonder why so many 311 calls for things like blocked driveways, abandoned cars, excessive noise, and more went unanswered. That might work when volume is low, but it doesn't work in a city of 8 million people. New Yorkers deserve to know that when they take the time to report a problem, that it will be received, it will be assigned, and that it will be followed through on. That is why we are modernizing the police response to the 311 system. I am proud to announce that we are rolling out a new digital dispatch system for 311 jobs assigned to the NYPD's Q teams, the first of its kind, so that quality of life work is handled with the same level of structure and accountability as 911. The 311 system isn't the only place where outdated processes have lingered. When this department was founded in 1845, information inside a precinct was recorded by hand in a big paper logbook. Well, 181 years later, we still use that same system. Desk sergeants still write everything by hand, staffing, roll call, inspections, equipment, overtime, property, and compliance checks. Those ledgers are photocopied, stamped, and passed along whenever someone needs information. While nearly every other part of policing has evolved, how we take calls, how we communicate, how we deploy resources, the command log has not. There is no reason a department of this caliber should still be using 19th century technology. But that changes now. This year, we are rolling out a digital command logs that give leadership a clear, real-time picture of what's happening across their precincts. This is about working smarter, not harder. This is about saying that better is not good enough. We're also modernizing how we fight crime through the technology we rely on every day. When I was Deputy Commissioner of Information Technology, under the great Commissioner Bratton, who joins us here today, we created the Domain Awareness System, a platform designed to give our officers real-time information to support patrol response and investigations. This year, we are launching Domain Awareness System 2.0, a modernized platform designed to strengthen patrol and support investigations. DAS 2.0 brings real-time awareness directly into the field. An officer driving on the FDR can be alerted that a stolen car just passed a license plate reader up ahead. A supervisor at a scene can see live drone video and know exactly where that drone is in relation to the incident. I want to be clear, this is not AI. This is not facial recognition, and this is not an automated tool to track people's movements throughout the city. It is, however, a crime fighter's dream and a criminal's nightmare. This year marks the 25th anniversary of the September 11th attacks, a reminder of reality this department knows better than most. New York City is not only a global hub, it is a global target. What begins overseas often finds its way here, and that truth shapes how we staff, how we train, and how we deploy, and how we build partnerships well beyond city limits. In 2025, NYPD investigations led to more than 100 arrests connected to foreign terrorist organizations, domestic extremists, lone actors, and other serious threats. Those arrests spanned 8 foreign countries and 9 U.S. states. I began my career and spent years building out the NYPD's counterterrorism capabilities, so this topic is of particular import and interest to me. So let me give you a brief sense of what we are seeing around the world. Right now, several regions demand particular attention. We continue to monitor developments in Syria closely. The new government has signaled interest in closer cooperation with the United States, but its counterterrorism capacity remains uncertain. At the same time, there are persistent ISIS networks operating inside of the country, including activity around detention facilities and prison populations. Our Intelligence and Counterterrorism Bureau tracks this activity because those networks have repeatedly demonstrated both intent and reach beyond the region. New York City remains part of that threat calculus, and we plan accordingly. Another type of threat that we're monitoring closely is how modern conflict is reshaping the tools that can be used against cities like ours. The war in Ukraine has become a real-world testing ground for drone technology, and if there is one threat that keeps me up at night, it is drones. Tactics that once belonged to militaries are now increasingly accessible to smaller groups and individuals, and commercial drones can be easily adapted into weapons of war. As we look ahead to events that will soon take place here in New York City, like the World Cup, the 250th birthday of our country, and the 25th anniversary of 9/11, the potential threat posed by weaponized drones looms large and deserves dedicated countermeasures. Right now, we have the capability to detect drones, but we lack the authority to take them down ourselves. We expect to receive that authority from the White House this year, which we have long advocated for. As we speak, we are investing millions of dollars in mitigation equipment, and we have completed all of the necessary training. We plan to be ready to commence drone mitigation operations as soon as we are legally allowed to do so. Finally, I want to turn to a region that has become increasingly important to the global threat picture, and that is Africa. Over the past several years, parts of Africa, particularly West Africa and Somalia, have emerged as a growing center of gravity for terrorist networks linked to ISIS and al-Qaeda. In many of these areas, government control is weak, and terrorist organizations operate, recruit, and move with far less interference than in other parts of the world. Groups like al-Shabaab in Somalia and ISIS in West Africa have been able to strengthen their presence and expand their reach, in some cases, far beyond the African continent. Our investigators assigned to the Joint Terrorism Task Force have worked on numerous cases with connections to the region, helping take down terrorist leaders and networks and bringing those responsible to justice for the threats that they pose to our city. In fact, 2 of the nation's leading counterterrorism experts in the region are an NYPD intelligence analyst and an NYPD detective. One recent case shows exactly how direct that connection can be. Cholo Abdi Abdullah was an al-Shabaab operative who trained for years to become a commercial pilot as part of a plan to carry out a 9/11-style attack in New York City. He attended flight school overseas, he studied cockpit security, he researched airline hiring practices, and planned to hijack a plane and crash it into a building in the United States. That plot was disrupted by the work of NYPD detectives and our federal partners. Last month, Abdullah was sentenced to life in prison. The way we approach that reality is consistent with how we police this city. When violence concentrates in a particular corridor in the Bronx, we don't wait for it to spread. We deploy resources there. The same principle applies beyond our borders. I want to thank the Police Foundation for providing the resources that support some of our new efforts in identifying emerging threats and deepen our understanding of the networks in Africa that pose a threat to New York City. Finally, I want to address an issue that has played an outsized role in shaping the public safety environment in cities, including our own, over the past several months, and that is civil immigration enforcement operations. Let me be clear. The NYPD does not engage in civil immigration enforcement, period. We do not ask people about their immigration status, and we do not do civil immigration enforcement on behalf of the federal government. At the same time, that approach has never prevented us from working closely with federal partners, many of whom are here this morning, on serious criminal matters. We have deeply important partnerships with federal agencies, and we work side by side with them on a variety of cases that are vital to public safety, including terrorism, violence, guns, gangs, regardless of the subject's immigration status. That cooperation is important, and it continues. But when federal immigration operations come into a city and generate fear and anger and unrest, local police don't get to walk away from the consequences. They're the ones who stay, who respond to the next 911 call, who work to keep neighborhoods stable, and who have to rebuild trust that may have been damaged by actions that they themselves didn't take. That makes the job harder and our communities less safe. Oftentimes, the stories that emerge from the NYPD's work focus on the people at the center of the crisis. What slips from view are the men and women who answered the call and what they are left to hold on to when it's over. The strain it takes, the loss it leaves, the way it seeps into every part of who they are, even after they take off the uniform. For generations, our chaplains unit has made sure that that weight was never our officers to bear alone. They've helped them find their better angels and remember the calling that lives at the heart of this work. Last year, we lost the man who had long served as the moral conscience of this department, our beloved Chief Chaplain, Rabbi Alvin Cass, Zichrono Livracha. For decades, he was there for our officers in moments of grief, in moments of doubt, and in moments when this job felt especially heavy. In the months since Rabbi Cass's passing, I have spent a great deal of time thinking about how that role should be honored and carried forward. I kept coming back to a single word, tzaddik. In the Jewish tradition, it means a righteous person, someone whose life embodies the moral clarity, compassion, and wisdom that our officers rely on in their hardest moments. And I'll admit, the idea came to me in an unexpected place while I was sitting at Mass. Don't tell my rabbi. What followed was extraordinary. Not just one, but two tzaddiks answered that call. These two men need no introduction, because for decades they have shaped the spiritual life of this city through leadership that reaches far beyond their congregations and their pulpits. So today, it is my distinct honor to announce that the co-chief chaplains of the New York City Police Department will be Cardinal Timothy Dolan and Reverend A.R. Bernard. They will be installed at a ceremony at One Police Plaza on February 24th. I hope to see many of you there. And their decision to serve this department speaks to something enduring between faith and policing, and to the place this role has long held in the lives of the men and women who wear the shield. Cardinal Dolan, Reverend Bernard, would you please stand, and will everyone join me in welcoming them to the New York City Police Department? This morning, we spent a lot of time talking about the standards we expect of the men and women of this department, not only in how they perform the job, but in how they carry themselves, how they treat people in moments of stress, and how they understand the responsibility that comes with their shields. Across the history of this department, there have been countless officers who lived up to that expectation. What is rarer is a life that does more than meet the standard, a life that reshapes how the public understands this work and how this department understands itself. Detective Stephen D. McDonald's life did exactly that, not only in the courage that he showed, but in the character that he demonstrated, in his refusal to be defined by bitterness, in his commitment to dignity and forgiveness, in the way he continued to represent this department with grace long after his own life had been changed in ways that most people could never imagine. His story became known well beyond this city because it reflected something deeper than policing. It reflected what moral strength and courage actually look like when tested. Stephen McDonald is truly the embodiment of who we want our officers to be. That's why it is my honor to announce that we are renaming the department's police academy in honor of Detective Stephen McDonald. We will be holding the renaming ceremony on July 16th, 42 years to the day that then recruit McDonald entered the police academy for the first time. Going forward, every officer who walks through those doors will begin their career with a clear understanding of the kind of officer that this department hopes that they will strive to be. I want to thank Detective McDonald's wife, Patty Ann, and his son, Captain Connor McDonald, for sharing him with us and for continuing to share his example with the department. Patty Ann and Captain McDonald, would you please stand so that we can recognize you? All of this, the crime reductions, the restructuring, the training, the modernization, is a reflection of something far more important than any one initiative. It reflects a department that understands that better has never been good enough. It reflects the standard this department has chosen to hold itself to, a standard that recognizes that the work of policing New York City demands constant improvement from the people who do it, that preparation must deepen as the job becomes more complex, and that professionalism is a daily practice. Over the past year, that standard has become visible in ways that are impossible to miss: a rising headcount, falling crime, greater accountability, and stronger leadership. That's what it looks like when the people who do this job understand that yesterday's performance is not enough for today's responsibility, and today's work will not be enough for tomorrow's challenge. You see it in the men and women who put on the uniform, the cops standing on foot posts in the grueling heat of the summer and the bitter cold of the winter, officers working midnight tours, moving from one radio run to the next while the rest of the city sleeps. Cops taking guns off the street, one arrest at a time. Detectives building cases against violent crews. This is not glamorous work. It is long hours and missed holidays. It's coming back the next day after seeing things most people never will. We all need to remember that in a city like New York, public safety does not take care of itself. It depends on the decisions made in real time, on street corners and in apartments and on subway platforms across the city by some of the most noble among us, and we owe them our gratitude. Our work begins with one promise that every New Yorker deserves to feel safe, and these are the men and women who make that promise real. So God bless you all, and God bless the men and women of the New York City Police Department. Thank you.
And thank you, Police Commissioner Tisch. And now to close out the State of the NYPD, it's my pleasure to introduce the President and CEO of the New York City Police Foundation, Ms. Susan Birbaum.
Thank you, Commissioner, for sharing your incredible results and laying out your plan for a safer New York City. We appreciate you sharing your vision with us. Everyone in this room knows that public safety is a shared responsibility, and we pledge to do our part to support you and the men and women of the New York City Police Department as they work tirelessly every day to keep us safe. I want to thank all of our guests today, our public officials, our trustees and supporters, and especially our esteemed Chairman, Dr. Phil Ozawa, for sponsoring this morning's breakfast. I also want to thank my incredible New York City Police Foundation staff, with the shout out to Taylor Kahn and Jennifer Cadaro for doing a great job this morning. And last, but certainly not least, please join us on June 4th on the Intrepid at the New York City Police Foundation Gala, where we will have the distinct privilege of honoring Andreas Strakopoulos, the co-president of the Stavros Niarchos Foundation, who's been incredibly generous and kind and supportive of the Police Foundation, and he's here today. Andreas, thank you so much. And that's a wrap. Have a great day.